All right, so OpenClaw released update 4.7 on April 7th, and then they quickly released 4.8 with some hot fixes. But what we are going to focus on in this video is the 4.7, which is a mega release. And I'm going to drop all the links in the description below so you can check it out. But let's go through some of the big ticket items that has been released by OpenClaw, and this is going to keep getting better and better. Welcome to the channel. I am Amit and I talk about AI, whether it's OpenClaw, Claude, Paperclip, or other AI tools. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, you're here to find out what's the latest and greatest with OpenClaw. Now, to get the latest and greatest, make sure you run this npm install on your terminal, and that'll install the latest update on your machine or your VPS wherever you're hosting OpenClaw. And then once you've done it, you can go through the onboarding again if you'd like to, if you want to change your providers, if you want to add new providers, which is what we're going to cover in this video. The first one of those big updates is OpenClaw Infer. And think of this as, would you open Photoshop to simply crop an image? You probably won't. So what this means in OpenClaw's term is, instead of doing a full agent session, you could run a quick infer command and straight away get to what you're looking for. So this is an example of a command that I gave to OpenClaw, and you'd simply type OpenClaw infer image, and you do the same with video, same with audio. As long as you have those providers set up, you would run this command. And then in this case, once I gave it the prompt, this was the result that was automatically added to my Mac Mini. If you're on the VPS, you'll probably find this in one of those folders within OpenClaw. So if you're doing shell scripts or you're doing automations using Make, N8, and Zapier, this is where you would use the infer command. This next one is media generation, and this one is specifically about fail safes. So you can have a backup provider. As you can see here, you can have a fallback, and if your main provider fails or is rate limiting you, or maybe it's just down, then your request will automatically be routed to the fallback provider. Or maybe the main provider that you have does not support the format. In that case, it'll again go to the fallback. For example, let's say you want a 16:9 image and maybe Gemini doesn't support it, then it'll go to my fal.ai to see if that provider supports it, and if not, then it'll create the closest dimension image. Same goes for movies. Let's say you are out of your credits with Gemini to generate a 10-second movie, it'll then revert back to fal.ai and use that to generate that 10-second movie. And all of this is happening in the background, so you never know that it actually went to the fallback provider. Next up is Memory Wikipedia. This is pretty awesome. So this is how Memory Wikipedia works. It's broken down into claims and evidence, contradictions, and then staleness. Let's start with claims and evidence. And what that means is every piece of memory is now stored as a claim and backed by evidence. So instead of the agent writing, the user likes dark roast coffee, it stores claim, user prefers dark roast coffee. Evidence, user said that I only drink dark roast coffee on April 2nd. And why this matters is, if you ask the agent, why do you think I like dark roast coffee? It can go back at that claim from that memory and look at the evidence that backed that claim. Now, next up is contradictions. So this one is pretty self-explanatory. Here's an example of a conflict. In January, I tell my OpenClaw I am vegetarian. In March, I ask my OpenClaw to order steak for me. Instead of just doing it, it's going to ask me back, hey, in January you said you're vegetarian. Are you sure you want me to order steak? Now what's cool is OpenClaw clusters conflicting claims together so that the agent can ask you to clarify versus randomly picking one. Another real world example of this would be, you're chatting with your OpenClaw agent and you ask it, hey, start helping me budget money towards a laptop that's going to cost me $1,000. Maybe 6 months down the line, you say, hey, I want to start budgeting to buy a car. It might look at these as conflicting arguments and then come back and ask you, are we still budgeting money for that laptop that you wanted to budget for, or are we moving over to a car? Next, we have staleness. And essentially, this is think of similar to Google's ranking algorithm. This is a staleness algorithm that gives more weight to fresh information versus stale information. An example of this would be you told your agent your phone number 2 years ago. That information is probably stale, and before your agent shares your contact with someone, maybe 2 years later, you're saying, hey, send my contact number to my friend. It's going to confirm with you before it sends that because that information is now stale in your agent's memory. Now, how do you enable all of this? You do it through the Memories plugin. So these are the prompts you would put in your terminal. I'll drop these in the description. Super powerful stuff, and it's essentially having a better memory system for your OpenClaw. Here's what that memory wiki prompt looks like in my terminal. So once I pasted that prompt, you can see it says memory wiki enabled, restart the gateway to apply. Once you restart the gateway, you can go and check your config file. It's usually config.json, and this is the result in config.json. You can see memory wiki enabled is true. Next up is your agent has now been given dreaming. Just like humans, your agent can also dream. Essentially what this is OpenClaw will review your past session history and extract any durable knowledge from it while redacting any sensitive data. And what it does with that is ingests it into a dreaming corpus, is what they're calling it. And it's then processed with your daily notes as a checkpoint. So that means it can track where it left off. And this way we can save on session memory because it doesn't reprocess old sessions. Now, a real world example of this would be you had a 45-minute full-blown conversation about your marketing plan. You talked about ad budget, you talked about targeting, you talked about Facebook ads, all that fun stuff. But you never said, remember this. Even if you didn't explicitly say that, OpenClaw will commit that to a memory as a claim. And in the future, if you ask about your marketing plan, it can go and retrieve that claim and present it to you. Once you give this config command in your terminal, and you can do this in the TUI as well, you can give it the ask for your dreaming status, and you will see that dreaming has been enabled. And inside of my OpenClaw TUI interface, I can see that dreaming is on. There was actually a tab called dreaming, and when I clicked on that tab, this is what it looks like. Right now, I didn't have any diary because there's no new sessions after I enabled dreaming, but just know that you can also look at it in the user interface. The next one is a huge release and could have been just a release in itself, which is Webhook Ingress, which means OpenClaw can now take data from a webhook. All of that is already part of this update, which means all you need to do is assign it a webhook, send data to that webhook, and OpenClaw can receive it. So imagine someone's filling a form. The form is captured on your website. That form lead using a webhook can be now sent to OpenClaw. It'll receive that data, and then it can maybe add it to your CRM every time it receives that data. I have a screenshot here of me sending the webhook command and then seeing that that webhook was actually successfully received by OpenClaw. And I just tested this on my local machine, but this is also the TUI interface where I talked about the dreaming tab, which is right here. To set it up, you would type this in your terminal, config set plugins, and you would enable the webhooks plugin. It might also already be enabled if you have recently updated your OpenClaw to 4.7. If not, this is how you would manually do it. This next one is another pretty powerful update, and it's called session checkpoints. So every time OpenClaw compacts your session, what it's going to start doing is create a session checkpoint where it'll save that entire session and then it'll compact. So let's say you have 200 plus messages, you get a full context saved on that checkpoint, and then those 200 messages get compacted to 20 messages, but you can go to that previous session checkpoint and either branch off from there or restore a checkpoint. To show you what this looks like in the TUI, now when I go to my sessions, I can see there is a compaction here. And right under that compaction, you can see the show checkpoints button. So that's how you can get back to any checkpoint of your memory, which means compaction is no longer a one-way door. Your sessions can always be uncompact. Next is pluggable compaction providers. This one is a little nerdy, but also completely understand why they would provide this. So what you can do is, instead of the default OpenClaw compaction, which will happen with whatever LLM provider you're using, you can specify what provider you want to use just for compaction. Now, why would you want two different providers? This would be more of a domain specific use case. Let's say you're in finance or real estate or medicine field, and you have your LLM trained on your terminology. Instead of relying on a generic LLM like ChatGPT or Gemini, you could plug in that specifically trained LLM on your industry specific domain knowledge as a compaction method. So all your compaction is understood by this specific LLM. And again, you would go and give it this terminal prompt to get the compaction changed to a different pluggable model. And then this is what that looks like once you plug it in. So I'm saying for the compaction, use GPT 5.4 mini instead of my regular LLM. So another reason could be that your regular LLM, such as a Opus 4.6, is too expensive and you're going to churn more tokens trying to get it compacted. Why not use a cheaper model for the compaction? And that's the use case that I've highlighted here, that without this, if you're using GPT 5.4 or Opus 4.6 for both chat and compaction, then it's going to cost you more money. Whereas with this, you can use 5.4 mini for the compaction and 5.4 Pro for all your regular chats. This next one is a few other LLM provider updates. One is Archie AI, which is enterprise specific fine-tuned models. So I didn't really test that. Gemma 4, haven't downloaded it on this machine to test it, but that's now also available. Know that since it's a local model, the response time could be a little slower. And then also Olama Vision Auto Detect. So I did run Olama and I downloaded the Lava Vision model. However, I could not get it to create an image with that fallback model. It kept going to my GPT 5.4. But what it's saying is you could use these fallback models for expensive token usage, such as image generation. Although I was not able to test this theory and get it to spit out an image using the on-device Olama Lava model. And then everyone's favorite is security hardening. So there's a lot of security hardening that was done in 4.7. First is the environment variable injection. So any Java, Rust, Git, etc. credential environment overrides are now blocked. And this prevents a scenario where a malicious tool call could redirect your agent to run attacker controlled code. So that's been locked down now. The next is the redirect body leak, where 307 and 308 redirects are now restricted. Essentially what this does is stops from redirecting you to a website where there could be a malicious prompt injection that could expose your environment credentials. So that is now being prevented. And then stale authorization sessions are now kicked out. So if you have rotated your gateway key, you will be kicked out of all sessions. Sometimes the older sessions on a terminal could linger around, so that's no longer the case. And then finally, one of the most important, which is the Claw Hub downloads are now verified against an SHA 256 encryption. And if that security check fails, then the plugin never installs on your VPS host or on your local machine. And then finally in 4.8, there were a bunch of hot fixes to fix some of the issues that were created by 4.7. And there you have it, folks. That is OpenClaw 4.7 mega updates coming to you from AI with Amit. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button. And until next time, keep prompting.